The issue with that is you putting the kid in an identity crisis, because what happens is, depending on what environment they're in, they either being told stay in a child's place, or they being told you need to start making your own decisions. Wait a minute, which one is it? What's your identity, and how can we help cultivate your identity? Because now we starting to unravel your gifts, and we starting to unravel these things throughout life that you probably were searching for, which brings you right into your purpose. Life is not about what you do, it's about who you are.
Welcome to Catch the Moment podcast. I am your host, David Tyree.
It is caught by Tyree. That's a great catch by David Tyree. Oh my God. This ball's thrown and Tyree just goes up for it like a basketball player.
Welcome to Catch the Moment podcast. It's your host, David Tyree. We are absolutely excited about today's episode. In the building, about to get you through that process, right? We're going to navigate through the pain points. We're going to navigate through every obstacle so that you can get to your next destination of success. Today, I'm here with the owners of Our Friendly Advice, my new brothers in the grind, Anthony Johnson and Durrell Marsh. Welcome to the pod, fellas.
Thank you for having us.
Listen, man, this is good. We got South Jersey in the building. You know, we gotta get into a friendly war on North Jersey, South Jersey, just a little bit, play around with it. But before we get into it, I always like to start every episode. What's your memory? First time you ever saw the helmet catch? I don't even know if y'all sports fans. Y'all out here helping people. But what was your memory story? And both of y'all collectively, just drop them on me real quick. First time y'all saw the helmet catch.
Man, the first time I saw the helmet catch, I remember like it was yesterday. All my family was there together, and I said, man, New England is, they got this, right? Yeah. So when I saw the helmet catch, like, it's no surprise to me that you're a believer. Yeah. Because in that moment, that was God's way of showing a miracle, right? And showing other people, hey, it's something different about him. Yeah. So from that moment on, he knew that you was going to be a good steward over that testimony and that story. Because that helmet catch wasn't just a moment, but it was a movement, which turned, and then the movement turned to a monument. So that
respect
for sure.
It was bar. I mean, no pressure.
No pressure to follow up after that. But the helmet catch for me at the time, I wasn't that big into football, but I always get around my boys for like the Super Bowl with my friends and everything like that. So we thought it was over. We thought New England was going to take it. And all I seen was the catch, and I was like, yeah, thank God. Yeah. I couldn't stand New England. It was like, so that was my moment. It was like, they was meant to win it. Man. Can't beat that.
Listen, it was wild. I mean, obviously, you know, these are the defining moment in my sports career for certain. I think everybody's kind of looking for those definable moments, and you guys are in this this human capital space is what I like to call it. At the end of the day, the greatest capital is the hearts of humans, right? So both of you are in the people space. First, talk about what your journey into it, because I believe it's you got your master's in public administration, but also a mental health advocate, and Durrell, a case manager currently, but now you guys have collaborated to kind of really bring a little bit more layer and depth to your expertise. But what has been, first I'm gonna flip the table, what has been your defining moment? Because you both are people of purpose, you know. So what is your defining moment, and just kind of bring us into this passion?
Man, so for me, the defining moment started from birth. I was born premature, 1 pound, 12 ounces during birth in 1991. So you can imagine the technology, all of that and the medicine wasn't up to par during that time. And the unfortunate part is the same time that I was being born, my father was being sentenced to 40 years in prison. Literally the same time.
Goodness.
So you can imagine the type of like emotional state my mother was in, which probably speaks to why I was premature.
Sure.
Right? And from that moment on, like, God literally saved my life and been protecting me ever since. So my defining moment started from the moment I started breathing, bro.
Wow. All right, that's big bar. We going somewhere. We going somewhere. D, what would you say? Like I said, because being people of people and impact and sourcing out the hearts of humans is powerful. So for you, what has been your defining moment?
My defining moment was my segue from England to America. So I came here when I was 7, and I came with my grandmother. And what I learned is what you are is the difference that you bring to the world. So I was bullied crazy, like crazy. I couldn't lose my accent fast enough.
Wow.
Like, yeah. So, but what I learned from that, I didn't have either parent. Like I said, I grew up with my grandmother.
Wow, so no mom, no father, but you had grandma.
I had grandma, yeah, and me and my grandfather weren't close. So it was really just me and my grandmother. But for the most part, I was alone. So what I figured out from these ventures that I went through in the life's journey was that I learned this, like I would say like 9, 10.
Yeah.
Your emotions are your emotions. Not everybody's going to embrace your emotions. Not everybody's going to ask for your emotions. My grandma was a solace woman. Like,
wow.
She handled what she had to handle, and there was no talking about it. Like, there's conversations to this day we've never had, which she just I think she internalized I would just know, and they would just happen. So for me, it was what I see. I take from my childhood what is representative of our business, which is we got to stop guessing that these kids know.
Yep. Yeah.
From everything, from how they handle life to their emotions. It's like is this a point when you're 16, 15 where it's like you are an adult in our eyes, but then you're still a kid.
Yeah.
So that's where when we linked up and we had these conversations, that's where we just caught the moment for the business. So that's where the business matriculated.
I love it. Let's segue because I think your story is going to come out in this connection because now you guys, like I said, you're in similar spaces where your passion is serving people. Sounds like there's definitely an awareness around the emerging generation. If is that a segment when you consider our friendly advice? Is that an intentional segment, a population group that you guys are targeting? This America, the conversation has been pretty strong in relation to mental health. I think it's definitely a very real one. I tell people, man, it's like, it's hard not to recognize that, number one, it's very real. But when I talk about mental resiliency, right? Absolutely. So I think that statistics and data will show you that this is a physically weaker emerging generation. They're not out and active as much. This is a mentally weaker, not altogether weak, but weaker emerging generation. So, so the first question is that your population, and how did that become a passion that you guys aligned up?
So let's start with mental health first because it's actually like a totality of things, right? Our friendly advice, we address every area. But first with mental health, what many people don't know as far as mental health is like when you look at the word like psychology and you take the word psych, it actually doesn't just mean the human mind. It actually means the soul and the spirit.
Absolutely.
So when you find yourself addressing it from that standpoint and understanding, hey, there's a difference between, as a mental health advocate, I can give y'all resources, but only God can bring deliverance. If that's not talked about right there, then you'll find yourself in a situation to where you'll have all the resources in the world, but availability don't mean accessibility. Like just because it's available don't mean it's accessible. So our job is to ensure like we are making it like the resources both present and we are invested. We just had a keynote when we was talking about health equity, mental health, and emotional intelligence with the New Jersey Department of Health. Excellent. And one thing that stuck out the most is the fact of we told them we're not here for the data and the grants and all of that. We here because we actually want to do life with the kids. Yeah. So that means like, we're going to bring to them the necessary accountability that they need. But prom day, we there. Yeah. During their basketball games, football games, cheerleading, we there. Yeah. So we are going to be the extension or the big brothers that they never had. Yeah. And also making sure we looking over their soul properly as well. So
man, that's fantastic. Now, as this evolves, right? Like, and all right, so let's get into it because you talked about the soul and the spirit. We ain't afraid here. We're gonna get into it.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Because I think that's been the disconnect, and probably still is a greater disconnect. Yes, sir. Foundation for you when you talked about being born into this world as a child, and I think that's a real trauma, right? Like that's a physical trauma, being a premature child, yes, and then you have to navigate through the absence of a father. So how do you feel like in this grand scheme of God, understanding your life and how did you get to wholeness where you kind of began to align with your purpose and these ways where you can begin to see value.
Yeah. So, man, I got to give all respect to my great-grandmother. Man, she passed away.
Generations.
Yeah, she passed away some years ago. But how many of us know, like, man, just the same way, like, generational curses could come down your bloodline, generational blessings can too, and it could skip a generation. So I picked up the mantle that my great-grandmother, put down, that skipped over my grandmother and my mother.
Yeah.
That skipped over my father and my grandfather.
It wasn't.
So literally, when I say God was protecting me from day one, He literally was. How my story kind of go, man, like being from Camden, New Jersey, I became a product of my environment.
Bro, Camden.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what. So I'm real quick. I'm from Essex County, so Newark is like the hub of activity.
Yeah.
I grew up in East Orange, moved over to the nice, beautiful suburbs of Montclair. But we pride ourselves. But Camden, woo!
Yeah.
I tell people, I said Camden and Patterson was two of them spots.
Man, it's like a third world country for real. So imagine this. Imagine your father being the kingpin, and now you got the same name as your father, and now you got to step into the reputation that he has built.
Ooh.
Unintentionally, right?
So the shadow.
So the shadow, right? So from day one, I'm living in the shadow of a man that I don't even know. But everybody, because I look like him, I walk like him, my mannerisms like him, everything is like him. They like, yo, that's Lil Ant right there. Like, so it came with a level of, man, influence.
Yeah.
Status, privilege, power. Like,
well, we ain't talk about. Come on, we ain't talk about the fact that this goes on both sides, positive and negative, because credibility is credibility on both sides. So even as the son of a man who hasn't done well, who hasn't done right, it positioned you to have credibility. And that's a powerful thing because you're actually going off the name of your father, good, bad, or indifferent. I just had to throw that in there.
Yeah, so that's pretty much how that went, man. And then
so what was the thicket for you that really and even talk about maybe what's the turning point where you get sober about who you are and what you want to be?
My grandmother randomly signed me up for baptism.
I'm sorry.
Now look, check me out. Now look, this how like out of touch I was, right?
Yeah.
So I showed up in a wife beater and shorts. They like, yo, you got to put on this white gown. I'm like, man, you know what I just came outside from doing? Like, yo, this church about to burn. Like, y'all tripping. Y'all know who I am. Like, that's the mentality I had walking into the church.
How old was you at the time?
19. Wow. 19.
Yeah, so you a young ghoul.
Yeah. So at the time, I'm like, man, but that whole stigma of like a praying grandmother, that's a real thing. My grandma, my great grandma was literally praying for me. So I decided to go through with the baptism. This pastor took a liking to me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He took me under his wing, and he been discipling me the right way. So,
bruh, man, I like that.
Yeah,
I like
he was
that
discipling me the right way. So I didn't have to. You know how typically when people grow up in church, they have to kind of knock off the religion and self-righteous that come with it and the legalism. I came in with a fresh pair of eyes. So imagine that. I'm coming in with a fresh pair of eyes, and I'm able to be like, hey, yo, I was just reading Acts. This don't look like that.
Yeah.
Like, hold up. They were sharing possessions, and because the love they have for one another, the early church continued to grow. I'm watching people leave the church. Wait a minute, something ain't happening right. Is God here or not? But but as you continue to develop and you continue to grow with spiritual maturity, you then start to realize that every building with a cross on it is not a church.
Clearly.
It's a cult.
Oh! Why you going? Hey, we can't talk about it like that. We got to differentiate some things. I got you.
I'm just making it clear. It's a difference. It is a difference. So yeah, that's pretty much my story, man. I ain't looked back since I got baptized, man. I've been locked in spiritually.
That's powerful. So I want to talk. I want to bring you into this in relation to, coming from England, right? Like so, and you're like I said, you're 7 years old, so there's still a whole lot of formation in relation to being a young kid, but. What was it like from a standpoint of, we understand that the emotional well-being of kids, you start looking for acceptance. So you talk about language, just trying to find some people. So you black, you from England. Yeah. I know we off the chain as black folks, so we coming for you. What was that like, and when, at what point did you kind of begin to find your lane of acceptance as you migrated?
So I would say, going to college, and talking to other kids my age at that time, and getting their experiences, there was none like growing up. I grew up in Lakewood. So there's not like Lakewood is at the most time, I would say 85% black, 15% Spanish, and a little mix of everything else. There's not too many white people in my school. But growing up, what I learned is I got it from both sides. So everybody hated me. I'm talking about everybody. I got hated by the white kids. I got hated by the black kids. I got hated by Spanish kids. They used Spanish. I remember Spanish kids used to chase me. They was like, for no reason. They was like, we just gonna get you. So there was 2 brothers and a cousin, and they rode my bus. And every day they used to chase me to the bus and to the playground. And they would try to jump me every time. Every time I got eggs cracked in my book bag. I got spat on. Everything you can think of.
This is human nature, y'all.
And what it taught me though is there's a lot of things. That's why I said, like, when you were speaking about mental health and like the rate of like where these kids are at today, I think what happens in life is that we lose the importance of balance. Yeah. Right. So was my bullying extreme? Yes. But inside of that, to go and say, well, we're not going to cancel out bullying, I think it erodes a person because now you don't know how to interact with people. The world, this like, they got these kids in these like cogs, right? They live in these little cohorts. And then as soon as life hits them, and this is where suicide and everything comes from, because they're inside of this thing from kindergarten to 12th grade where no one can say anything about them. As soon as they get into the workforce, and they have people talking about them and gossiping, it's like, well, this is not what this is adverse to what I'm used to.
The boy in the bubble.
Right. And they get rid of themselves. And my thing is like, you need everything in life is balance.
Yeah.
Everything's thrown off. So for me, that's where I got my ground sense from. It was like, I'm gonna get my opportunity. I'm gonna get my point at some point. And what I noticed was when I grew up, I gravitated towards women, like girls. So I had a lot more girlfriends than I had guy friends. I was always a thinker, always logical. And what I noticed is girls like to talk, right? They like to talk all day, and guys really don't say much unless they're on the field or on the court. That's when the talking happens.
Men are purpose driven.
Right. So when I hung around females, what it helped me understand is the balance. And then, like I said, I get to see when you hang around a girl and a guy likes a girl, or you get to hear who he really is. Yeah. So that guy that's like acting tough, he's not that tough. Because Shorty giving you all the roses and the candy. Shorty showing me everything he's saying. I'm like, oh, this is who people scared of. So I get your toes. You get to see the balance of things, and then operating in the world I would say from a woman's perspective, it really helped me. Even though what I would say is the girls that I grew up with, in my perspective, don't like to debate. What I learned is how everybody has their ability to speak. You just got to learn it. So sometimes it's like, voice. You got to find that voice. Sometimes that voice is body language. So if you're dealing with a person and they're talking to you, they're telling you everything you need to know, you're just not visibly paying attention to it. Or if someone is saying things to you, but you're not picking up on it. And then, like I said, there may be body languages and like someone touches their ear. That may be their sign of uncomfortability. Like there's things of that nature. So that's what I learned from being around women is like women are very adept at learning a situation and knowing where to get in and get out. Whereas guys is like, we walk in a situation, we think we tough, we can handle anything. So that prepared me to delegate conversations. So going back to from the whole position of it, the balance of it was, I took this position and in the beginning I was taking my licks. By the end, by like I would say going out of middle school, I was getting somewhat popular. So like I knew how to converse. But at my graduation, I got the loudest applause. And it's because I knew everybody. So we had 2 cafeterias. Like so by the end of it, starting up,
besides friends, make yourself friendly.
Bullied in the beginning, and by the end of it, I knew everybody. I was on the soccer team, I was on the basketball team, I was on track. I was supporting my boys on the football team. I was a representative of everything, even in the worst ways. So like in Ant's case, when he was saying like reputation, there was things I would stand up for. May have not been from a positive standpoint, but it was like, for instance, they tried to implement uniforms my junior year. And I was like, we're not doing that. So I used to not wear this.
You found your voice as a leader.
So I used to come into school same dress, the same way, and they were like, "We're gonna have to suspend you. You keep going up." So I went to the board meeting, and I went to them and said, "We're not We not wearing that. So you can do that for the younger generation. I'm not saying I get what the uniforms are for. I get understanding, like, get rid of bullying in that aspect. Some people can't afford certain things. Got it. But for us, we came in as juniors. I mean, as freshmen, sophomores, going into senior year. You're not about to make us wear uniforms.
Yeah.
So they was like, for your class. So it ended up, for your class, we'll leave it alone. And then they followed uniforms the following year.
Wow.
Yeah, so it all has a reason. Yeah.
No, that's good. I love hearing your journey of, like you said, finding your voice. But, you know, it sounds like that awareness, right? So we all out here in this EI space, this emotional intelligence space, but it wasn't without the absence of adversity, right? So you guys have endured that bread of adversity. That's what I tell. I said, like, man, I've raised up some kids, and that's probably been my wife and myself, our biggest crucible of growth and maturity. But for you guys, like, you're both in this, like I said, this. I mean, how can I bring a person along? So when you consider the emerging generation, as you just introduced, they kind of lack the callous, right? You know, we talked about. I said, listen, they online, but they ain't outside, right? Like these are some different realities. So when you start engaging, what are some of the key steps of engaging this younger generation from a standpoint of actually getting their ear? Because it's either they're dynamic, you find emerging young people are either just super dynamic, or they're so fragile you can't. It's the appearance as if you can't say or do anything, or they're completely unavailable. When you're navigating, connecting with this younger generation, what's necessary?
Man, I think the first thing we got to understand is their why. Like, journeying with them, getting close to them to understand their why. You come to find out that kids is not quiet. Maybe something happened to them when they was a little bit younger to where they became voiceless.
That's good.
Right?
Yep,
maybe I had this one kid in particular, amazing at public speaking, right?
Yeah.
And I had to get him to realize that public speaking isn't just when you're in front of a crowd. Public speaking is when he's an athlete. When they interviewing you, that's public speaking. Like, when you raise your hand in class to answer a question, that's public speaking. Even the nonverbals that he just was talking about, it's public speaking, right?
Yeah, so you reframed it.
There you go. I had to reframe it. And what you have to do also is the same way that we observing them, they observing us. They know when you walking in here, they know when you're not authentic. Like, that testimony you just told, you lying.
Garbage.
And then look, now check this out, even from the church space, like, it's a lot of different spaces. A testimony is only as powerful as your wounds and your scars. And what I mean by that, if you going in here and saying, hey, I used to do what you did, young brother. Yeah. Used to. It's like, hey, you just whispered in my ear and said the girl in the third pew was, she like that. Yeah. No, this ain't used to. Yeah. You got open wounds that we need to discuss, and they trust you the moment that you start talking about your open wounds and also your scars.
There's in truth, transparency, and transformation. That's DT3. Absolutely. That's how we roll. And I think, like, I've understood and learned is that transparency is the bridge to build trust.
Yep.
Right? Transparency. So, but you obviously, if it's not authentic, then you lose. You're talking about a big loss, right? Yeah. One step forward, two steps back.
Absolutely.
So now talk to me real quick. And public, you know, like this pursuit toward the Masters. Number one, to you know, when we consider where we come from, right along the journey. You come from no pops, raised by these impactful women. How do you land on Rutgers, one of the great, like, people don't understand Rutgers is the real deal. It's actually a step away from Ivy League. Then you go get your master's, and now we talk about public administration, which really, you know, considers a lot of policy and things of that nature. How did the interest level, like, where do you go in your mind from 19 years old, forced baptism, to I'm in this lane now?
Man, so one thing, I was always intelligent.
Bad. So were you always aware of it?
I was always aware of it.
We're similar in that way.
Yeah, I was always aware of it. And here's the thing. I always had, I was the type of guy, I knew what I was taking a risk on. But I always had an exit plan. Look, I was always the leader of it all. So this leadership thing that I'm in right now, this ain't nothing new.
This water.
This is light. This is easy to me, right? So if I can control men in the streets, I can control this right here. Yeah. So when it comes to, like, actual policy, I realized that, man, you start getting to the administrators and the higher ups, all they respect is what's on that paper. That's it. Policy isn't based on the language you can talk. It's the language you can write down and put into into a proper framework.
Sure.
I tell people all the time, even with like when they want to start their businesses, the most important thing about starting your business is how you track the data. If you cannot track that data and you don't have a policy for that, then you can't expect anybody to love it, understand it, and reinforce it. So that's how I got into policy. Understanding like, hey, I'm gonna change this from behind the scenes, and I also got the mouthpiece to bring it up in front of the public. So we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna address it. Yeah. But the best way to actually address it is to put it on paper. Make sure it's on black and white so it lasts longer than me.
All right, so talk about this relationship and how it comes together, and we talk about partnerships. I think I had this thought flowing in my head, and I was like, man, you know, we come from a previous generation. You actually alluded to this with your grandmother. That was very they were concealed. They didn't share much, right? And I said my generation, we were competitive, so it wasn't that we didn't share, but we was competing against each other. And I said, this is now a collaborative generation. Yeah. So you go from concealing to competing to collaborating. All right, everybody, this is David Tyree, your favorite Super Bowl champion. I want you to know something, public service announcement. If you're looking for some energizing salads, some protein-rich, delicious sandwiches and wraps, and our one-of-a-kind Super Bowls, I need y'all to come through 68 South Street, Morristown, Tyree's Table. Come through, get this love, because there's room for everybody at the table. We want you to understand that this is the intersection of health, culinary creativity. We got it going on, y'all. But even more so, this is the place where communities come together. So see us at Tyree's Table. We'll get great done together. D, talk about this relationship, and what do you feel like the mutual wins that y'all bring to each other? How is it a complementary business approach, and what do you feel like your supply is, what you've learned, what you've gained to bring, our friendly, advice to the fruition and to the market?
That's a great question. For me, it was sentimentally, I was always looking for brotherhood. Nice. Always. I even joined a fraternity for brotherhood.
Same.
So
Phi Beta Sigma fraternity.
But
by the way, I just want to put that out.
We talk about that as a coach.
I'm a captain.
I'm just messing with you. We'll get into some fun dollars.
But how it worked is, I did gain some relationships out of my brotherhood, but there was this opportunity that he spoke upon and just encouraged me and advised me in certain things. And our relationship from there kind of just spawned something. And in my mind, I was like, all right, that's different. I've never experienced that, especially from a black brother. Like just the same energy that I put out there for others, I try and receive, but I've never felt it back from someone just naturally. So then we had an event together and we spoke. And I never worked with this man a day in my life. So it was like he worked in a different department. I worked in a different department. They threw us together for this event. And it was just like he said in the opening, we know how to flow off of each other. That was natural. There's nothing we didn't rehearse nothing. We didn't go over anything. He started, I interjected. I interjected, he started. It just flowed. Wow. So then I was like, I don't know what this is or where this is coming from, but it was just it's something. I had an idea. Yeah. And I called him and he answered right away. And I was like, yo, this is my idea for a business. This is what you thinking about it. And he was like, bro, I'm in that necessary line of work already. I feel like we can combine what we have from what you know and what I know from the health mental side, the policy side, and from the student side. Because I work with students in a school setting. I know policy making from like a organizational standpoint as well. Yeah. So it was just like when we put our ideas together, it just flowed. And then what really stood up for me is we both had the mission of these kids. It's like these parents and society put kids in a place. It's just like the expectation is there for them to be known. And it's just like no one, when a kid is pulled over with bricks in the back seat, drugs in the back seat, or something illegal on them. Sure. And he gets taken to jail. No one's saying to him, well, what was his? How did you regulate your emotions? You're going to jail. No one cares. Yeah. When you're in high school and you're in sophomore and you punch somebody in the face, it's like, oh, they're sophomores. Sure. No one's preparing you. You can't punch somebody in the face when you're 21. Yeah. You punch someone, you going to jail. Yeah. So it's like that's what we came in and stepped in and say, you know what? Did we have it for ourselves? I didn't have that for ourselves. And from the conversations I've had with him, he didn't. We kind of just that logical, that
Yeah.
somebody higher than us, giving us, guiding us, telling us, like, we don't do that. That's not how it was. But I have a bunch of friends. Like he said his father had kingpin charges. One of my friends got kingpin charges. It's like, no one tells you. And you're trying to, and the thing about what considered bad is, bad is just trying to make us way out.
That's it.
That's it. I don't believe in, I think good and bad is subjective, right? Like if you, it says in the Bible, you shouldn't steal. But what happens if I have a family and we're broke?
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Bible actually talks about that too.
Absolutely.
I don't even know if it says does you shouldn't steal.
Well, that's one of the commandments. But
we'll talk about that.
But there's also in the New Testament they add some context to it as well.
Sure.
Can I add to this real quick? I'm gonna add something. So I want to bring this from a parental perspective as well, man, because I find this, and I'm pretty sure you find it too. So what happens a lot of the times is, like, the kid go through I'm cute phase, right?
Sure. Somewhere
around like 11 and a half, now it's like you ain't, that cute stuff is gone. Now I got to be a little bit more assertive, a little bit more aggressive. But here what a problem, though. This is the issue with it. The issue with that is you putting the kid in an identity crisis, because what happens is, depending on what environment they in, they either being told stay in a child's place, or they being told you need to start making your own decisions. Wait a minute, which one is it? Am I staying in the child's place, or I'm making my own decisions? So then they start to camouflage in whatever environment that they in, because they have to appease to whoever the authority figure is around them. And now they in like this gray area where they don't know what to do. And that's why you need somebody that's able to guide them correctly and advocate for them as well, because once they develop an identity crisis, it's going to go to their mental at some point.
I don't even know if it's truly a way completely around the perception of a crisis. I mean, like when you talk about that phase of growth and maturity, it's a stage where I've identified biologically changes are happening. Right? Biologically changes are happening for this kid, and for young men, they think they're a man, or they think they should be a man. But what their idea of being a man, and what their idea of being a girl is, very immature. Right? So I love the way that you said it, because I don't know if it's either or. Sometimes it's both and. I mean, like, I think you do have to respect the authority figure, and we definitely need an advocate. And I think, when I boil down our greatest issues are family issues. Right? Like, our greatest issues are if there's the worst failures, it's in the home.
At the dinner table.
Yeah.
Can I
go for it.
Touch on that real quick? So I'm gonna ask you something, and I want you to really think about it.
Yeah.
You gotta be do you have to take a test to be a pilot?
No, you don't.
I'm just saying, do you have to get schooling to be a pilot?
Are you talking about within our society?
Yeah, like,
yes.
Do you have to be tested to be a teacher?
Within our society, absolutely yes.
So it's crazy to me that when you think of an occupation, you have to have a test. Everything. You got to drive a car, test. One thing you don't have to test for is being a parent. The hardest job on the planet.
Yep.
There's no infrastructure for it.
Listen.
And you have a life, and the crazy thing about it is that life can't speak at a certain point.
Sure.
Right? And you're entrusting these two parents or one parent to do this job.
Sure.
That is one of the hardest things to do. And then we're talking about a healthy child. We're not even talking about complications.
Sure.
So I feel as though it is our job, whether you're black, white, Spanish, Puerto, I don't care what you are, is to go back into society, go back into the community and build relationships with the younger generation, and also connect with parents to say, hey, even if your kid's straight A's, number one student, best football player on the team, there's something you could be doing as a parent that's better.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And you can always reinvest in your child to be the best way. I just don't feel as though that component is happening enough.
I agree completely. I get into the when we talk about identity, so my greatest title is son, right? Because that's where you start as a man. Obviously, if you want to break it down to gender, here's a little powerful. I'll give you a 1 minute nugget. You become a son if you do things well. When I say do things well, I do believe there's a pattern, that God has a pattern and a plan and a purpose for us. And we violate it, there's consequences. I say you can never violate principle and prosper. So you become a son. Everybody's a son. And if you do that well and you flourish and you're able to have a healthy environment and the right training or instruction, then you're probably going to become a husband, right? And so you get son, you get husband, and if you do that well, you come together, then you become a father. And I think that's the foundation of things that theoretically don't have training books, but everybody's going to do. And how well we do that is what sets the course of a healthy family, i.e. community.
Definitely.
But like I said, there's some principles. There's some instruction and some guidance, and we need more people like yourselves to continue to give wisdom, especially in our minority communities. Let me get back to y'all. So talk to me about like when you think about like laying the foundation of advocacy. What are the biggest issues from an advocacy standpoint, and what our friendly advice? What do you feel like the white space is that you guys are aiming to fill? So advocacy-wise, because I think we talk, just as you already, the value is comprehensive, right? It looks like the value in relation to what you're offering, but what's the white space that you guys are aiming to fill?
Man, so it's a big gap, a few gaps that we like to address. One being like stress. And when we say stress, we talk about the stress level of not just the student, the educator, but also the parent. So prime example, there's a such thing as parent and teacher burnout, right? And I don't think that is addressed enough. That is the space that's kind of open right now, and we kind of learned that when we was doing the health equity keynote.
Nobody come and save us. We had 7 kids.
There you go.
We homeschooled for 15 years. Where y'all been at?
There you go. So look. So imagine you had us on FaceTime where we could alleviate some of those responsibilities, right?
Sure.
We here to work alongside the parent, not be the parent. So we understand. Yeah, you are the parent, but then everybody doesn't have the necessary support system. So if you're giving the parent a better support system, then that creates a better family infrastructure. So if you give the teacher, right, you come alongside the teacher and relieve some pressure off the teacher, that makes them a better teacher, but that also put the students in position to learn better as well. So that's the space that we feel.
I love it. I love it. You crushed that. All right, so when it comes down to you guys arriving in this space and having so much credibility, and I want you both to answer this. What when you think about we have lots of cliches, pain come in purpose. What was the most painful? What was the hardest thing, hardest trial or obstacle that you individually both had to really overcome that you now stand on? Okay. And it's really, you feel like it shaped you. What was that thing where maybe you were even your own head? Yeah. It's like, oh, I don't know. Like I said,
so when you when you say pain come with purpose, many people try to preach that to me, right?
Yeah.
And me being an athlete, growing up athlete.
What sports?
I played basketball and football.
Okay, respect.
Yeah. So ran track for a little bit too, but only for conditioning. Right? That's it. I just did it for conditioning purposes only. Right?
I love it.
So that was my biggest obstacle when I was told that pain breeds purpose, because that wasn't working for me. Like my pain actually at some point became my identity, and it became my standard rather than Christ.
Okay. So talk more when you say pain became your standard. Like you was just living through pain.
I was living through pain. Fueled me. Pain is what made me go to the gym.
Got you.
Pain is what made me learn them plays. Pain is what made me start dunking on people.
I'm all for some suffering now.
Like that, like, you understand?
Yeah.
But now where the issue came into play is the moment that I started praying for healing, and pain could no longer be there. So when pain wasn't my like my standard no more, and God started to heal me, then I had nothing to go off of.
Ooh, so now we talk about discipline and motivation.
There we go.
Okay, I'm with you, bro.
So at that point, you start realizing the discipline actually ain't there. Yeah, you like, wait a minute, I'm not disciplined. So the pain ain't here. So now I don't want to go to the gym.
Oh, bro.
Now I don't want to do these small minute things that create success. Like,
yeah, you all in my bag, bro.
Man, this is what's happening. So when I realized that, and for maybe about a year, I lost my identity. God was healing me, and then I was at this weird standstill where nothing was working.
Sure.
And as men, when our ego and our pride there, we like, everything I touch work. Like, wait, man,
I'm him.
Yeah, like, what? You know who I am? Like, what, right? And then God is like, that's the problem.
Yeah.
You want control, which means you're not relinquishing control.
Ooh, man. Boy, that C word, that control.
There I go. And that's what had me, man. So I had to realize that pain don't breed purpose. My salvation does.
Ooh. I know you had a whole nother lane in your life, and like I said, in light of this relationship, I'm sure you're adopting themes and principles. But for you, well, like I said, because these are things that if we don't have a true sense, right? Like if you don't have a playbook to build off of, that will crush you. So for you, what was the hardest thing from a soul searching perspective, where you lack in peace, you boiled over? What was it for you?
Truth, which is funny. That's one of your founding principles.
Wow.
Because not everybody wants the truth. Now, when I was a kid, since I was early as a kid, I used to tell people the truth all the time. I have stories upon stories. We were just together at a family outing, and for my uncle's birthday, and they were telling stories about how ever since I was a kid, I used to tell people the truth. So some guy came to the door. It was a bill person trying to my family. And I went to the door as a little kid and be like, they all back there. They don't want to speak to you.
Yeah.
And I had a story. I told it was a close friend of the family. He was messing with this woman. And I was young. And I said, I looked him in his face, and my grandma was there. And I was like, don't marry her. She's going to ruin your life. And I was a young kid. I had to be like 8.
So you told her you're going to ruin your life.
Yeah, she's gonna,
not just don't marry. You're going to tell her why.
She's going to ruin you. And he came back, and that's what she did. He kept the kids from her, everything you could think about. Ruined his life. He can't stand that woman to this day. But that's my thing, is that when I was younger, and to this day, when I'm not perfect in it, but I think my situation is the truth. Like I'm a very blunt person. I'm the black sheep of my family. I tell the hard truths when it doesn't want to be heard. I even had my aunt is like a very close person to me.
Okay.
Like, she in my mind, she tries to step up for like her sister and tries to do things to advocate and do things for me on that side. But even her, I told her, we've gotten to many arguments, and I said, because she wants things to be sugar-coated, and I'm just not that way. So I said, listen, I'm your nephew, and I love you. But that's the one thing. If you don't want to speak to me because of that, I can totally understand it. I've lost people in the past, but I won't sugarcoat things for you.
Sure.
And that's where I think it comes from for me, from my relationships to my friendships. I'll lose you before I'm going to like eat the bullet for not tell the truth. Like it is what it is. And
so that's a life principle for you. And it sounds like, obviously, in some extent, I think if you actually are walking in truth, then it does cost you relationships. It does cost you.
But it brings you peace, though. Because now I don't have to keep. My whole thing with my boys is like, I see it all the time. Like, they lie to these girls, and, it comes with whatever it comes with. And I'm just like, all these lies that you tell, you got to keep up with them. You got to remember what you tell them.
I remember them days.
So it's like, but I don't want to deal with that. I don't want a girl calling me talking about this, and that. Like, I told you what it was. So if I'm open at the time, I'm telling you there's other women.
Yeah.
Like, that's just me. I'm just going to tell you. So you can make a choice and the decision that you see is best for you.
So you going to tell them you a gigolo. You going to tell them you out here in these streets.
That's what it sounds like, right?
But listen, at that point.
It's the truth. The truth.
Yeah, at that point in time, if I'm going around and I'm seeking other women, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
now,
but you're going to be honest. So
I'm going to be honest. So you can make the full choice. I don't want you calling me or showing up at 3:00 in the morning or doing something crazy because I got you in the front. And I tell these girls all the time, like, I told you what it was, and I always revisit conversations. I do this with my kids.
Sure.
I always revisit the conversation.
How old are your kids?
No, like my kids that I counsel.
Okay, because neither one of y'all have.
But so, I always revisit. I think it's always important to revisit conversations. Never leave things up in the air. Because now
that's
people,
actually a good bar right there.
Because people like to, you can make up your own narrative from that. Especially like relationships. Oh, I feel like it's going this way, and that all her girls are like, "That's your man, girl. That's your man."
Yeah.
I didn't tell you was my girl.
Yeah. I love it.
So now it's like,
you said the F word. I feel
right.
I'm a word linguist.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm like, okay, so your feelings. I said, feelings are the worst place to make decisions from.
Absolutely.
I don't.
Right now, we are perfectly made humans.
Sorry.
Right. So we are meant to have healthy emotions and emit healthy emotions. But the moments, I just feel like you just don't like me. I was like, would I have ever told you I don't like you?
yeah, that don't mean.
You just made that up out your head. I never said that. And the fact that I'm still here should tell you everything that you need to know.
It should. But it just shows you how brittle we are as humans, right? How fragile we are and how people are coming to conclusions. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not something that I'm carrying, something that I'm emoting that couldn't cause them. And I've grown in this, being 20 years in the marriage game, trust me. My wife is bringing things to the table like, well, this has been my experience. I'm like, right? And I think these are powerful spaces that you can get into. I see. So you're a truth teller, but that truth does come with a liability, right? I tell, I've had this thought, and I just recently posted on IG. I said, listen, man, don't strive to be right. Strive to understand.
There you go.
Right. So, you guys are in this space and y'all are living this out. But I think that oftentimes when you live from a logical, which is deeply necessary today. We live in so much delusion, man. Right? We're living in so much delusion, mentally, emotionally. But if it's at the expense of the relationship, then is it a win? Have y'all ever thought about that? Because y'all are in this space where it's all about people.
Yeah, definitely.
But you can't expend truth. So what has been y'all experience, right? Like, because it sounds like, hey man, like everybody's trying to figure it out, right? In general,
it's a two-pronged process for me. So when I'm dealing with people, it's a different space. When I'm dealing with personal relationships, that's where it will burn out. So my logic will kill my personal relationships. When I'm dealing with someone on a one-on-one basis, though, it's never what I want for you.
So you get back in the servant lane.
So it's a different frame. It's a different hat.
Gotcha.
So it's like I never pronounce or put on someone what I want or their expectations. I don't set expectations with people. Someone comes in, we're gonna work through what you want, and I'm not gonna have like, well, let's say you want to quit drinking.
Sure.
And you're drinking, and you did 6 months, and you fell back into it. I'm not gonna judge you for your. I'm gonna tell you. So where are we going from here?
Sure.
Was it worth the drink? Was the situation worth it? Do you want to revisit your old ways of thinking, or do we need to change what made you get into it again? Versus, man, you disappointed me. What's going on? Like, how did you failed?
Yeah.
Like, you don't fail. You just have to reset. Maybe what was going on was worth that drink. Now we have to reset it to make sure you're not in that predicament again.
Sure.
Where we have to do to frame it.
That's good. I love it. So let me kind of bring this in, because I think you guys, man, it's just so much. Like this goes into every area, every issue. I tend to contextualize everything and formulate it and put it in a relationship basket, whether it's a living thing or an inanimate thing. What's your relationship with women? What's your relationship with alcohol? What's your relationship with the club? Because at the end of the day, everyone has some limited capacity. So when you guys are, and I mean, like, we all have limitations in relation to what we're engaged with, how we set priorities. What are the primary service, like as you guys have come together and building this this space of advocacy, service, and emotional intelligence? What's the starting, like when you think about taking on a new client, what's the starting point? And I'm in a similar space myself with DT3, but what's the starting point, and how do you define a win?
So for me, the starting point, man, would be they'll come.
Yeah.
And we would actually set the standard of our friendly advice.
Okay.
Right? So what that means is your identity is not necessarily your diagnosis, right? We look at the identity of a person and we go, well, what is this win going to look like, and make sure that it's tailor-made and suitable for them, right? Which means case by case, every win is not going to look the same, but we're going to make sure that we get that person across the finish line.
Love it.
So what's your identity, and how can we help cultivate your identity? Because now we starting to unravel your gifts, and we starting to unravel these things throughout life that you probably were searching for, which brings you right into your purpose. Life is not about what you do; it's about who you are.
Come on, bro.
And that's what we push.
How long you know me, man? Yeah, I ain't spilling out my bar, dog.
Yeah, it's not about what you do; it's who you are.
It's not about what you're becoming; it's about who you become. Absolutely. We out here in the same lane. We reading from the same playbook.
There you go.
This word got everything we're absolutely looking for. And what is the goal? So when you think about it, when you think about this business and the space of purpose and fulfillment, and obviously yourself as a man of God, how do you see the evolution of this? Because, and I do want to just kind of get your insight. The church, I think people have church paradigm. Let's have a little fun thing. The paradigm, people have the paradigm about the church. And there's a church paradigm and there's a kingdom paradigm.
For sure.
Right? So a kingdom paradigm understands that how you bring as a citizen, as a follower of the faith, how you bring that the authority that Christ gives his followers. Whereas the church is kind of like people have the paradigm of going to church. Okay, so let's get into this. Like, where's the intersection? And it's okay if it is or if it isn't. Because you talk about, I don't know if the church is a cult. I think that a poor expression of the church will feel like one.
Absolutely.
It like, but am I talking about central tenets? Because I tell people Christianity is all, it's all like what people think is Christianity is usually not.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's where we get off in the cultish realities or cultish expressions. So, but in relation to our friendly advice, the wisdom that you have as a servant of God, where's the intersection and how does that blend through in ways where it's like, hey man, we're authentically impacting the market in this space to the extent where we know that your purpose also has to get to something beyond just getting this win.
Man, so what it looked like is for them to bear witness on our success, which doesn't necessarily mean what we have, but again, about who we are. Tell people all the time, you can get fired from your job, but never from your purpose. If you watch and you look at like what we actually do, just like, and like we could talk about the church and break it down that way as well.
Sure.
Right? God calls us to citizenship, not membership. Right? Because as a member, if I'm just like a gym, at the moment I stop paying that $75 a month, I'm no longer a member. I'm out of here.
Big fact.
But as far as citizenship, right, we have authority and we have rights as the kingdom.
There we go.
So our main priority as far as when it comes to that, I just want to see people see us serve. How can we serve you?
There we go.
Bad service will always make people leave a restaurant.
Come on, bro. And listen, and that's why we serve people at Tyree's table. Y'all got to come through Morristown, but
definitely.
It's true. You can't skimp on the service.
There you go. So being a servant, more importantly, as a man of God, making sure my faith is what's at the forefront of what we got going on here, and then God blesses it. He provides favor. So it's not a man. I can honestly say it's not a room we cannot get in.
I love it.
There's not a person we can't get and connect with as far as on a youth level all the way up to the top of the top. It's not a person I can't get in contact with. So God is just doing some amazing stuff. And as far as our friendly advice, what's really behind it is not advice at all. It's actually wisdom.
Come on, bro. Give them the gems. Yeah. Give them these gems. Well, I've sat here and heard so much of it. Give us like what is your expectation? Because obviously y'all have experience and credentials. And I tell people credibility comes so many different ways, but I think together you guys make a dynamic expression of what our friendly advice will bring to communities and different marketplaces. But what's your expectation, man? Like as you consider your own personal journey in this space, currently working in the space as well, how does vision look for Unfold? And then y'all can speak to that collectively, but also collectively. Hey man, how does this thing evolve? And what do y'all expect moving forward?
I would love. I told him when we first met, one of my goals is to open up a youth center.
Nice.
But I want to have it entail where we're working in tandem with schools where these the youth are coming in and they're leaving at least walking away with 3 certifications. Right, so I want to empower them to. You like to do hair? All right, let's teach you how to do hair. Let's get you a license in it, so that when you leave, and I'm not saying this is going to end your pursuit of if you want to do something in college, if you want there's something down the road for you, but at least we have taught you 2 to 3 tangible skills that you can at any point in time make money off. If you hit rock bottom and you need to do something, go do that, or make your own business from it. I want to teach these kids, especially in the inner cities, impoverished areas, that. I use the Jay-Z method, right? He was a businessman selling drugs, right? Like the ultimate businessman. All you had to do is move his mindset. So all he knew from the block was sell drugs, and then somebody introduced him to, hey, you can sell music.
Sure.
From music, you can sell clothes, and then you can move on to different business endeavors.
Sure.
Some of these kids are geniuses at what they do.
Sure.
They're just using it in the wrong light.
Sure.
So if we can reframe that and get them to see possibilities that they never thought were possible.
Sure.
Then that's what I would love as a personal goal for our friendly advice, is to be able to go into certain cities, certain towns, and open up. Not in the sense of the same way as like a Boys and Girls Club or the YMCA, but our own envision where we're working with the community. The community is serving with us. So
Fantastic.
maybe there'll be like cosmetology, barber shops, and they're coming in and giving their 2 cents.
I love it. I love the vision. Yeah, talk to us.
I was gonna say,
go for it,
man. From a policy standpoint, right? Like I said earlier, it's not real. It's not on paper. So one thing we understand, like, do we do keynotes? Absolutely.
Sure.
But keynotes is only to inspire. Do we do workshops? Yeah, we'll come in. We'll touch the people. We'll be able to lock in and give you some type of detailed version of whatever it is. But our bread and butter is our actually curriculum. We got an entire curriculum.
Beautiful.
That will come into different spaces, whether it's organizations, education space, corporate space, and we teach them how to connect back. Basically, let me make this very practical. We teach them how to be human again.
Come on, bro.
Like, somewhere in this capitalist society, we allow money to just make us forget. We got to go back to the basics. All we're doing is teaching people how to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
Let's take it back to Genesis, since that's back to the basics.
Yeah.
For some weird reason, people say stuff like, we are a product of our environment. But wait a minute. I thought Adam was given dominion over the environment, which means that he has authority over it. Yeah. So if he has authority over it, why is it that we can't speak to our environment and tell our environment what to do for us, right? And I'm not talking about in manifestation standpoint, but I'm talking about coming together as a collective, a community.
A community.
Back to the basic again. Look at the word community. Common unity. If we don't got nothing in common and we not operating in unity, and we know community, we just look like a big mall. Yep. Everybody shopping for something different, but it's thousands of people there. Yep. No, we here shopping for the same thing and making sure that we operate on the same currency. So that's what our friendly advice is literally about. Like, we bringing you keynotes, workshops, and more importantly, an entire curriculum where we could come in and teach it, and then you could have it for the rest of your life. Yeah, and we can make everybody's job a lot easier.
That's fantastic, man. Well, number one, I'm looking forward to the vision coming to pass. You opened up a beautiful can of worms. I'm gonna call the last question a fun one for me, because y'all are two well-educated, strong men. Why y'all ain't married yet? What the hell? Y'all holding up the gravy train. You messing up community.
Listen.
If you're going to get the family right, you need more righteous men bringing forth righteous seed.
You know what? You absolutely right. We was talking about truth. Now, let me tell you, look, let's talk about that. Let me tell you the actual issue. So I was in a long-term relationship. I was in a 7-year relationship, and my issue in the relationship is that I enabled her so much that it started to bring codependency. So much so that I became like the god of the relationship to her, which now put me I'm out of order and I'm out of line. So I had to make sure that God had to deal with my heart in that. So now with the love of my life, right? Then I'm with now. I had to make sure that I was hearing from God on all things and make sure I was pacing it the right way. So now that I understand that, and God is allowing things to be in order, I can now say, hey, like, let's really do that thing. I cannot be married to someone if I wasn't married to God first.
Okay,
you understand?
That's
so making sure that I'm locked in with God, and now making sure that I understand.
So you saying that you were more the problem than she was the problem, or her?
Well, look, let's do some accountability.
Yeah,
it's just in case she see this.
I'm bringing you in, bro, because we speak the same language.
I was the issue because I'm the one that knew better.
Sound like you was getting them cheeks. Yeah, it was getting them cheeks.
I did.
You was forgiven?
I did my thing. I did my thing. But the entire time, man, that conviction and that confusion.
Yeah.
Like I was being torn apart the entire time. So that separation had to happen.
I got you. Because it was illicit. It wasn't. You knew it wasn't built on the right foundation.
Absolutely.
So you had to excavate and start over.
And the entire thing was shaky because of it.
So listen, man. We're gonna get straight to it.
Yeah.
All right. So because at the end of the day, these are the solutions that God has to, I think, real issues in humanity. Men will take their position. I think you know that. You speaking that.
Absolutely.
My guy. So tell me why you how old are you now?
I'm 31.
31. Come on, get off the side.
So look,
get in the game.
I'll answer this honestly. We attract what we are, right?
Yeah.
So I was a boy and I attracted girls.
Yeah.
So now I'm dealing with a beautiful.
Don't talk to the letter.
But now I'm dealing with a beautiful young woman.
Okay.
Who we both respect each other. Our opinions are there. We can have conversations. Difficult. I've been dealing with her for a year.
Yeah.
And I say the most beautiful aspect of our relationship is that we don't argue. We haven't had one argument yet. And the reason why is because we are able to say our points and just bridge it.
Effective communication.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is huge in any relationship.
Right. She says what she has to say, I say what I have to say, and we just keep it at that. And what I would say is, I think beyond love, because everybody searches for love, but I think you need to have respect. If you guys do not respect each other, that relationship means nothing. Respect. Yeah. Because love is a fleeting emotion. It can come and go. But if you respect each other, you can always build back love. Yes. But you can't build back respect. No. They'll never look at you the same.
Let me tell you what, you certainly can, but it's hard.
Very, very difficult.
You certainly can, but it's hard, and especially for a man, because he thrives off of
respect.
Yeah. He thrives off. And the reason I could say with 20 years, now, like I said, it's all about foundation, getting back to Minister Ant. It's all about the foundation. So, man, I'm excited for everything. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Before that, I'm smiling because when she see this, she's gonna be like, "See, we need to be married."
Hey, look,
I'm about that life.
Look,
I like him.
Hey, listen, man. Well, here's the deal: you guys are high integrity people.
Yeah.
So why not close the deal?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right? I mean, because all of our failures are moral failures. So we could talk about policy. But we don't have issues in society. We have sin in society, right? So that's what we call it, because we like to exchange language so that everybody could feel good about being mediocre or horrible, right? So I think good and bad definitely exists, or good and evil, right? But that's where you start. And because humans are so complex, there are nuances because of the condition of our heart. Meaning, we all deal with the same issues, but amazingly, God made every single one of us unique. How? I don't understand that. That's amazing. Here we are. We have you go on Instagram, everybody got the same thing we laughing at.
Yeah.
We all listen, folks out here married, husbands slapping butts. It's fantastic, right? But when it comes down to the detail and the design of every individual, you have a unique voice, a unique purpose, but everybody's looking for that community to share and bring their contributions. So the call to accountability is listen, man, if you're gonna be the real thing, don't create an escape mechanism.
Yeah, facts.
Don't build in the it's like marriage. If you have divorce on the table, then divorce is always an option. Yeah. Right? And that's the only reason why marriages fail. Marriages fail because you saw yourself out of it. Mm-hmm. You literally created a mechanism that says, if this happens, I'm out. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you actually made the commitment, we said something totally different.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? So it's a powerful dynamic. And in light of you guys being an emerging generation of leaders, Our Friendly Advice has the tools, right? The tools to bring a supply to any market or community. And I think it's necessary. So, man, thank y'all for being willing and vulnerable to just even bring your own relationship. Because I think at the end of the day, it's our authenticity, right? And you can be it's everything is real about what I just heard. Because I didn't want to break nobody's heart when I was a hoe. I was a hoe. I was out here hoeing in these streets, okay? Yeah. And I was the scared hoe. I mean, I wasn't going to be honest enough to tell him, right? So I just lied to him, right? Still a liar, right? But it was lying with the best of intentions, the best to not hurt you. So my nature as a person is I don't enjoy hurting people, right? But self-preserving is what caused me to be a liability anyway. Every time I choose self, somebody's going to lose. Mm-hmm. And that's really all of our issues, man. Absolutely. Thank y'all for letting me rip and rant.
No problem.
What y'all want people to know, tell people where to find y'all, and what y'all want them to know.
Yeah, so follow us at Our Friendly Advice. Our website is right now. It's being put up right now. It'll be up by the time this come out.
We'll get that.
Ourfriendlyadvice.com. Individually, you could follow me at Minister Ant. Minister_Ant on all platforms as well. Mm-hmm. We're going to continue to lock in.
I love it. You good, Dave?
Yeah, I'm good. But for me, just follow Our Friendly Advice on Instagram.
I'm going to let my dog lead the charge on that. But listen, man, you guys are dynamic. I'm praying for the business. Super excited for the platform that God has given you. Thank you for the transparency. Thank you for the tools. Thank you for leading people. Thank you for being brave. Let's keep getting great done. I hope y'all enjoyed that episode. That's what we're working with. We're going to get you to that process so you can get your next moment. We'll see you next week.